Parshas Naso Tafshin Pei Vav. So Baruch Hashem, due to a simcha tonight, beautiful simcha for me personally. The grandson is making siyum on the entire Masechta Bab Metzia that he learned this man with yeshiva. Beautiful simcha. So there's no way we can miss that. So we're recording the shir a bit early today, and we'll try to post it a little early too. So Parshas Naso, a lot going on in this week's parsha. The beginning of the parsha speaks about the Leviim and their jobs in the Mishkan and what they did and how they traveled with the Mishkan. Then we have so many different subjects that are covered in the rest of the parsha, ending with the parsha of the Nesiim. But one of the things that comes right in the middle of the parsha this week is the mitzvah of Birchas Kohanim. Beautiful mitzvah, a mitzvah that the pasuk says about Birchas Kohanim, Daber el Aharon vel banav leimor, say to Aaron HaKohen and to his children, say the following: Koi savaruchu es b'nei Yisrael. This is how, and we're all familiar with this from the davening every morning. This is what this is how you should bless the Bnei Yisrael. Amor lahem, you should say to them the following, and we all know: Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Yo'er Hashem panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Birchas Kohanim. And Nesivos Shalom says that the first thing that we need to understand over here, before we even get to the Birchas Kohanim, what comes before the Birchas Kohanim all the time? What comes before the Birchas Kohanim is the bracha that's recited by the Kohanim before giving the bracha to Bnei Yisrael. And this bracha is really different than any other of the Birchas HaMitzvahs. Why? Because first of all, we say Asher Kedushanu b'Kedushasoi Shel Aharon, which is something which we don't find that kind of text, that kind of description of what we're doing in the mitzvah. We don't find that any other mitzvahs. But the bracha ends the Vareches Amo Yisrael bi'ahava. That Klal Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, have to be blessed bi'ahava, with love. So the two questions that we're really going to focus on here today is, what is the B'Kedushasoi Shel Aharon? Why are we zeroing in on some special Kedusha, some special part of Aaron HaKohen? And what is so unique about this mitzvah that it has to be bi'ahava, that it has to be given over with love? That's something certainly unique to Birchas Kohanim. And even though we know that the Zohar teaches us, is a famous Zohar, the Zohar teaches us that, Gemara speaks about it also, that any Kohen that has something against other Yidden, something against a member of the congregation, or if the people of the congregation have some kind of gripe with the Kohen that wants to do Birchas Kohanim, that Kohen should really not be doing Birchas Kohanim. And that alone is a very interesting halacha. If there is some sort of discord between the Kohen and the congregation, or the congregation and the Kohen, he shouldn't do Birchas Kohanim. So that is a halacha that we know. But really, that is only one of the halachas or the dinim of the mitzvah. It's a special din. We have a mitzvah Birchas Kohanim. There's a special din in Birchas Kohanim that if there's some problem between Kohen and the congregation or vice versa, then he shouldn't really be giving or doing Birchas Kohanim. But since when do we mention one of the dinim or the halachas or things that the way the mitzvah is supposed to be done? Since when do we mention it in the nusach of the bracha, and this is stuck right into the bracha. Levorech es hamoy Yisrael b'ahava. So it's a zaydik halacha that you can't. This kohen shouldn't be doing brachas kahanim here. But to put it right into the bracha, what does ahava, what does love have to do with the mitzvah or the bracha? Why is it put in there? So Nesivos Shalom, to explain this, gives us a bit of a deep, I would like to call it maybe a Kabbalistic insight into how this entire idea of bracha, one person giving bracha to another person, to bracha having effect on another person. So there is a Kabbalistic way of looking at how all of this really works. And he says the following, Nesivos Shalom, that Hashem created this world with a system where the mechanism in the world, the way things work in the world, is one of mashpia and mekabel. There is a giver and there is a taker. And we're not saying that one is more chashuv than the other at this, so we're not getting into that discussion, but there is a mashpia and a mekabel. For example, how do we explain this? A way that you'll all understand this. We know that the rain and the sun are mashpia. The rain and the sun are giving forth either the rays of sunlight or the water or the components that the rain and the water is made of. And the earth, and it rains down on the earth. The earth is the makabel. The earth is receiving the rain and the sun. And through that, the plants and produce, fruits, vegetables, and so many other things take place and they grow. Once again, we're explaining it through an idea of mashpia and mikabel. And the kesher, the connection of really what makes all this work, says the Nesivos Shalom from Kabbalah, what makes all this work is the midas ahava, because one has to be willing to accept. In other words, if the earth rejected, or if all the rain would bounce off the earth, or if the earth would put on sunglasses and not accept the rays of the sunlight, nothing would happen. So through midas ahava, of accepting, of how we would understand it as ahava of love, but this is a deeper understanding of what ahava is. So it all takes place, the mashpia and the mekabel take place through midas ahava, as the pasuk in Tehillim says, ki amarti olam chesed yiboneh, through chesed, which is ahava. Through that, the world is built. The entire building of the world is through chesed and ahava, which, as we explained, connect the mashpia and the mekabel. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us that just like that works in ways and things of Gashmias, which we just explained, and there are so many different examples of ways in Gashmias that mashpia and mekabel work. It works that way too in Ruchnius. Ruchnius works that way also. In other words, a person cannot attain levels of Ruchnius without a mashpia. You have to have a mashpia that is giving you something that you are being mekabel. And how does that happen? That happens also through midas ahava. And that, says in the Nesivos Shalom, is really how a person receives bracha at any place, at any stage of their life, in any way. That's how a person receives bracha, which is stam kedai to know. For anybody who doesn't love receiving bracha, who doesn't want to receive brachas, who doesn't want to always be involved in bracha, midas ahava, midas achesed, the more you excel, the more you exude, and the more you demonstrate that is part of your being, it would seem that you are able to accept and to be able to receive more bracha. And that's really how a person receives bracha, because bracha is really something that is lamala miderech hateva. I mean, just try to understand for a second what's going on over here. So you go to a tzaddik or you a person, anybody really can give a bracha. We're supposed to give our friends and our acquaintances. We're supposed to give bracha. So how does bracha work? Why does it work? It definitely doesn't work al pi derech hateva. It's not something that we could understand. It's not a tangible. It doesn't follow any order that we can really explain. It's l'malam b'derech hateva. So when the Birchas Kahanim says v'yishmerecha, let's say when in Birchas Kahanim we say v'yishmerecha, what we're actually saying is that we're saying that this bracha that you receive, Shavi Yishmerecha, it should watch over you. That the mashpia and the makabel should connect, and through that mashpia and makabel, through you connecting to the kohanim that are giving over the brachas from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through that whole connection, somehow the Yishmerecha, that you should be watched over. And that's the order and the sequence really of how this works. And that connection, as we know, that connection, as we've been explaining from the Kabbalah, from the Nesivos Shalom, happens through ahava. Like we see by the brachos, by the avos, when Yitzchak Avinu, right? Yitzchak Avinu wanted to give a bracha, was Yaakov and Esav, and he wanted to give a bracha. He said, "Va'aseh li mat'amim, make for me delicacy, make for me some kind of food." Why? Yitzchak Avinu, the Yitzchak Avinu life did not revolve around food. He wasn't going out to eat. He wasn't busy with these things. But what was it? It was to be ma'orer ahava, because when you bring somebody food and you feed somebody, you're being ma'orer ahava, a kinship, a friendship, a love between one person on the other. So what Yitzchak Avinu wanted over there is to be mamshich the bracha, that the bracha should have a way to catch on and a way to be given over through that midas ahava. The mashpia for the bracha to Bnei Yisrael was now through Aaron HaKohen, Asher Kedishanu, as we're explaining now through the bracha. The text of the bracha is Asher Kedishanu b'Kedushasai Shel Aharon. Why? Because Aaron Avinu was the person that was Oyev Shalom, B'Roidev Shalom. Aaron was the person who epitomized, Aaron was the person who displayed in the strongest way this midah, Oyev Shalom, B'Roidev Shalom, bringing ahava between one year and the next. So it's B'Kedushasai Shel Aharon. Through that midah of Aharon, midas ahava, that's how we're going to get the bracha going. That's going to give us the biggest chance of actually receiving the bracha. The kedusha of Aaron, B'Kedushasai Shel Aharon, came through his midah, the midah of ahava, and that is really the root of the power of the bracha that the kohanim, even today, that the kohanim have. So we answered b'Kedushasai Shel Aharon. What about b'ahava? Love is why we mentioning it in the bracha. It says in the Nesivos Shalom that the bracha, that ahava being said in the bracha is not just another din. It's not just another din. As we just explained, it's the entire basis of the koyach of the bracha. That is all through midas ahava. So we asked, if a kohen is not getting along with the tzibah, that's just a halacha. Why is Ben Shabbat? No, it's not just a halacha. It's the fundamental, it's the root of how the entire bracha that is being given over works. And that's how it works. So really, I think a little bit the lesson for us, people like, we give brachas, we receive brachas, we want to be involved in bracha. We should let's try a little bit to chop on a little bit more than what every person in their own way, to be oyev shalom, v'roidev shalom, take on that midah of Aaron HaKohen, to understand that not only does it bring peace to Klal Yisrael, not only does it save from argument and strife and all the other lashon hara, all these kind of things, but it actually brings bracha into your life. It brings this beautiful midah of ahava, which now connects you to the brachas that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give, and He's giving through the Kahanim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving to you all the time. But you have to exemplify this midah of ahava. Let's take that on, and every one of us should be zoicha to lots more bracha in our lives.